record. That might be something you can teach me more.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. And it shows up on my screen that you're recording. And so, you know.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Am I screen sharing now though? It's not showing that I am.
No, you'll just need to go back to the share screen.
I did. That was weird.
There you go.
Okay. It didn't like it at first.
There you go.
All right. There we go. Okay. Rise up. You know why you're here, everyone, right? So I just wanted to talk quickly about communication and how it matters. Because, I mean, we all know that, right? So the reiteration of things that we know sometimes helps greatly, especially when you're not used to speaking in front of people, whether that be virtually or in person. Sometimes we can forget some of these things. So I'm not going to read all of them because obviously all of you know how to read, but there are a few of them that I really wanted to highlight because we've been doing Tuesday night Zooms with Rise Up since September. And there are a few things that I've noticed that some of the people sometimes forget, or they get to talking and they're not paying attention to what they're talking about or how. So watching for feedback and adapt. So the nonverbal communication is huge when you're virtual because you have to read the people, the audience's faces. And remember, these are teenagers, so it makes it even harder. So are they paying attention? Are they looking at the screen? Are they looking at something else? And adapt, making sure that you're like, oh, wait, they're not paying attention. Let me talk about something different. Talk about what I'm talking about a different way, one or the other. You guys know your audience because I've talked to each of you about how Rise Up targets at-risk youth, but also just teenagers in general, 13 to 23. We typically get 14 to 17-year-olds though on this Zoom. Obviously upbeat attitude. Let's see, maintaining eye contact is so hard when you're virtual, and I'm not doing a great job either because I want to look at your eyes, but your eyes are down here and my camera's up here. So that doesn't help, but if you can look like you're making eye contact, it's best because then they think and they know you're talking to them and they feel more heard, they feel more valued. Practicing beforehand too. I'm notorious for doing things on the fly, but it's not necessarily recommended when you're going into something like this because the kids know if you've prepared, they know if you're winging it. They're really good judges usually of character and whether you're legit, for lack of better terms. Asking open-ended questions too. Teenagers are going to answer yes or no if they can. So asking open-ended questions is huge. Utilizing visual aids. When I teach, I like to bring in PowerPoints and using things like, don't have anything on my desk, but if I'm talking about computers, I'll bring in a mouse, something like that, something to show them to keep their attention on you. And what not to do. Obviously, we don't want to speak in a monotone manner because that would even put us to sleep. Not to read like I'm doing right now off this screen, not to read unless you absolutely have to. A big one that I've learned along the way is not to use sarcasm or limit it because at-risk youth don't process that the same way as other youth do. So if you have any at-risk youth or foster kids or whatever on your Zoom, on your class, they might not understand what you're saying. They might take you literally, or they might get offended. We adopted a sibling set of 3. And when they first came to us, one of my boys kept asking us what was for dinner. When are we going to eat? And I finally got frustrated and I said, we're going to eat these boxes because we were moving if you don't stop asking. And he thought I was serious. And obviously I wasn't. So I had to tone back my sarcasm. So you don't want to do something like that with these kids. And don't overwhelm them with data. Sometimes a lesson that it is just full of data and somehow figure out how to make it more engaging, which I can talk to you about your topic and we can figure out how to do that. Don't pause for long periods of time. That one's big. because then you completely lost them and it's awkward. Does anybody have any questions about these before I move on? I know that I sped through them, but again, most of it's common sense. And again, I'm recording, so if there was something you missed, you can go back and look at it later. So I wanted really quickly, for those of you that haven't yet taught via Zoom, but will, this is a good layout to do. So generally, I let everyone in at 7. I welcome them. I go over the rules that are on the screen, the Zoom class rules. I want them to keep themselves muted, try to be in a distraction-free environment, keeping their cameras on, things like that. They're all pretty good about it. And then I would introduce our guest instructor, and I like for them to introduce themselves too, reiterate maybe what I said, share a little bit about themselves, what they're there for, just kind of trying to connect with them a little bit. This is something that not everybody likes, the icebreaker part. I love icebreakers. What better way to get the kids talking and engaged than something fun or interesting or different, or crack some jokes. Get them feeling or realizing that you're there for them and you just want to hang out really, and you're not there to be a teacher and over them, so to speak. So our Zoom classes, if you don't know, we do it every Tuesday night. All teens are welcome. They're always free, and they will continue indefinitely even after we get in person. These are our topics. They're not limited to this list, but this is a list that we have, obviously, that can be broken down, like finance and money. That could be 5 different lessons or more if we wanted them to be. But the highlighted ones are things that are on the schedule that we've either already done or we're going to do. The same with the list in the green. Those are classes that are on the schedule that have happened or will happen. So just to let you guys know, if you haven't seen this list, for example, Caroline taught first aid, and Deacon McConnell is going to do the military. Is it for me? And Jeannie taught, I don't remember the name of it. Oh, respecting something. But my brother's going to do respecting authority. He's a police officer. But anyway, so we can be very flexible and creative with our classes too. It isn't limited to this, like I said. So why are our life and leadership skills important? These are on our website and our Facebook page. I'm not going to read it, and I don't expect you to read it now unless you can really quickly. But responsible, independent, strong, empowered, upstanding, and productive. Those are the qualities and characteristics that we want to instill in these kids. And that is actually what Rise Up literally stands for too. So just the values that those words contain in themselves are huge, and they can lead into giving them these things: an ability to graduate, goals and aspirations that they have, like obtaining financial stability, learning the power of hard work and dedication, etc. So I love the picture with the world in their hand, because we're literally trying to give them their world, trying to help them succeed in their lives. So, I've shared a tiny bit about at-risk kids as far as they don't understand sarcasm very well. And some of you know some of the backgrounds they come from. Well, because of the trauma they've experienced, most adults think they're being manipulative or a behavior issue. They're acting out, they want attention. Yes, sometimes that might be true. But in general, they're lacking skills. And they're lacking skills because during that traumatic time in their life, their brain's connections didn't connect the same way as another child's would have. So they're literally lacking the skills sometimes. So when we go into our classes, if we're using different lenses, we realize that these behaviors that they exhibit sometimes are not on purpose, and that we can maybe handle it more patiently that way. And For those of you that haven't looked at these things, please do. And if you haven't followed us, please do. Our website, Rise Up Cooperative, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I post every day. And this, I think, sums up what we do. Every child has a song inside, and it's our job to turn up the volume. So that was a lot of information really quick. It is exactly what I don't want you guys to do with the kids. Does anybody have anything that they want to ask about that slideshow, one, and that they have been prepared that they want to bring to the table? You don't have to, obviously, but it's an option.
Sandy, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm getting the gist of this, obviously. So when it's time for us to do this, you're going to be the host, correct? Not
Yes, sir.
us.
Correct.
And so you'll introduce us as a guest speaker. If we, two things, if we have some sort of maybe a PowerPoint or something to share screen, will we be able to do that, or do I need to send that to you?
No, you'll have the ability to do it. I will turn over, for lack of better terms, control to you, either as a co-host or just giving you the ability to share.
Okay. And something just came up recently that I don't want to bore everybody, but I have asked, do you remember the Schumachers at the Basilica?
Yes.
J.P. Schumacher, I worked with him in Notre Dame when he was a student to get into West Point. He did, and he graduated and he's commissioned. He's now stationed back here as the recruiting commander for the area, and has agreed to join me. And
awesome. That's fantastic.
Is that okay?
Yes, sir. That's great.
Then I can send him the same link you sent me with the invitation.
Yep.
Now, what if he then wants to show some slides from the Army perspective? Should I just tell him not to do that, or is
no,
he okay?
He can too.
So you can share control.
Yep.
Like that. Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
I'm good to go. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. If there aren't any questions or anything that anybody else wants to share, I'm going to hand it over to Laura.
All right, I will do that. And as a follow-up to what Tom was saying, Tom, once I go through these slides, I'll be happy to kind of also show you the control bar and make sure you'd be comfortable sharing your screen. If you've never done that before, I'll kind of show you how to do that. So, okay. Well, my name is Laura House, and I work at Chattanooga State. I met Sandy through Caroline Wesson, so it was really kind of a great thing. I work in academic resources, and I am going to try a new type of screen share and see if it will work for us tonight. It's kind of fun. So you can do like Sandy did and like most people do, and you can share your PowerPoint, but if you have the app installed, you can do kind of a more fancy screen sharing, which is what I'm going to attempt. So can everybody see my PowerPoint? All right, great. So what this is an advanced screen share. If you click on screen share on the bottom of your toolbar, there's a little tiny tab. Typically it's called advanced, and you can really only do this if you're using a computer. You may not be able to do it with an iPad, but what it does is you can link your PowerPoint to your screen share, and it will convert it into a virtual background. So if you have your slides, I've kind of purposefully made my slides to have nothing in this space so that my head won't be covering words. But this is a screen share where you are using your PowerPoint as your background. So this is kind of a fun thing to do. But anyway, so I work at Chattanooga State, and back in 2018, I was kind of converted from teaching the X-ray program into helping to put content online. I was moving X-ray and MRI content online, and I really loved it. And the assistant VP, Judy Lowe, was like, please come work for me and teach other teachers how to teach online. So from August of 2018 until March, that was the best job ever. But when the pandemic happened in March and we had to teach everybody to teach online, it got a little bit crazy. So I get it. I understand. It's been wild, but I love what I do. So it's a learning curve. We teach every day new hire teachers that really weren't even very comfortable with email. They can do Zoom. You just have to just keep trying it out. So I'm going to talk about just a few of those types of tips that we share with our faculty at Chattanooga State and with our within our own department, things that we like to try and things that we like to do. So I'm sharing these tips for students with you guys so that if you are going to meet with a few students, you could even kind of give them these tips in the front end. You know, you can say, please everybody mute. Remember that everybody, you know, we're all here in this together. You can use the chat for them to ask questions. I will also caution you against that if you are not comfortable monitoring the chat and trying to speak at the same time. In fact, you can disable the chat if it starts to get away from you. So sometimes students will be chatting with each other and they're all going crazy and you can't even read what they're saying and you're trying to talk. So quite a few of our faculty have even disabled the chat. So you can do that, and I just wanted to bring that up. But some of our faculty really enjoy the chat because they can say, hey, I have a question, and they can read that. So just know yourself when it comes to using the chat. You can remind them that, you know, there is a hand raise feature, but you also need to be familiar with how to see that. So I'll demonstrate that in a minute too. Doesn't do any good for them to know how to raise their hand if you're not sure how to see that they're raising their hand. It's sometimes more fluid to let them come off of mute to ask questions. Depends on the size of the class that you're speaking with. And definitely prepare your space. I mean, I put my back to the wall because it's much less likely to be interrupted by my two kids or my husband or one of our dogs or cats because I'm trying to make it less distracting in the background. If you have no control over your space, that's a good time to use a virtual background. And depending on your device will depend on your virtual backgrounds. Some tips I have for you about that is you cannot wear green shirts if you want to use a virtual background. You will disappear into your background. And if you want to do this where we have the PowerPoint behind us, definitely test out the color shirt you're wearing with your virtual background or for your PowerPoint. I have a really nice flowery shirt that has some green on it and I forgot and I was teaching a Zoom and it looked like I had a hole in me. Like you could see parts of my shirt, but it was really disturbing and distracting because of my shirt. So that's just a little tip for you there. Something that makes a difference with all virtual meetings, whether you're using Zoom or WebEx or Teams or Google Meets. These are a few things that you should know, and I'm not going to read it to you, but it is very important to, you know, try and find a space that has a good Wi-Fi. In my house, I know it's the strongest in the living room. Try to be in that space where you have the best signal. It's worth it to move yourself a little closer to the Wi-Fi. When you're signing in, it's also nice to identify yourself, first and last name. And I can show you a little bit about that too. You guys will notice I'm wearing a headset. It doesn't have to be this fancy, but it makes a huge difference on the quality of your sound. If you can even just get earbuds with a microphone, it's going to sound so much better for the people who are listening. the first few sessions we were training on Zoom, people thought that I had some kind of professional radio training because my sound was so good. It's strictly because I'm using a headset and a microphone, and it's not going to pick up all the ambient noise. So definitely, if you can afford it, there's lots of electronics on sale. Invest in a microphone. It really does help. Muting unless you're speaking is just a good general rule. And as Sandy said earlier, try really hard to talk to the camera. I'm like Sandy, I want to look at your faces and I want to see what you're doing, but it does help if you can just try to make eye contact with the camera. It really does. So there are a few things that I can talk to you about, but it's going to make the difference on if you're using a free account or if you'll be using a professional account. Sandy, if you're going to be hosting these meetings, I think some of these tips are going to depend on if you have these turned on in your account, if you're going to be the host. Okay, so definitely stop me if I say something that you're not familiar with. Okay. So polls are kind of a fun thing. And I do not see a poll as an option in this Zoom right now. So I am assuming that it's either not turned on or it may have been in a more expensive package. Do you know, Sandy?
It's on my side. As a co-host, maybe you can't see it. I'm not sure.
Okay, so you can see the polls. Mm-hmm. Would you mind to launch, you can just do one like, hey, how's it going? Or, you know, try and launch one. I'm not sure if you'll be able to do that or if you've ever tried that before. Polls are, sometimes people get confused by polls and they think, oh, you know, that's like election data or something. It's not. You can use a poll for things like, what do you really want to talk about tonight? And give them two choices. Like, what do you want to talk about first? And so you can let them pick. Perfect. Thank you, Sandy, for launching the poll. So you can, even this is a great example for your teens. Just say if you have 5 or 10 and you're wanting to, you know, 5 or 10 kids, you just want to gauge what kind of day are you having? And you can give them these choices. And then, so I'm not able to vote because I'm a co-host, but I see that 2 out of 5 people have voted. So if you want to vote, you know, go ahead. But it's kind of a nice way to be interactive and still feel anonymous. So they can say, you know, today was the worst. I'm glad I'm in this space right now instead of at school, or I prefer to be here than anywhere else. Just gives them that chance. So, all right, Sandy, so if you'll end that poll, you'll also be able to share the results. And then when you share the results, they can gauge, where am I with the rest of my friends? Like maybe somebody else was having a bad day and they can see that, oh, this looks really great. You know, so that's kind of a nice thing. Another thing that we use a lot at Chattanooga State, and you can stop sharing the results. Thank you, Sandy. Another thing that we like to use at Chat State is for privacy concerns is breakout rooms. So breakout rooms allow you to put the person in their own individual space. That also would probably be under Sandy's control. Do you know, Sandy, would you have a time when you guys would want to speak with each person individually? Would that be something y'all would want to do?
Depending on the class, maybe not individually, but putting them in different groups so they could work on a group activity. We have had a Zoom lesson that I didn't have the updated Zoom at the time, but she would have liked to have utilized that.
Yeah. So it is good for group work. They use it in schools all the time where they can say there's 10 kids and they want to pair people up into twos. You make 5 breakout rooms and then they can go and join those spaces, you know, 2 at a time. So it is a neat feature. And if some people get a little intimidated by it, but it's really easy. It's pretty intuitive. Now, I'm going to go through kind of the rest of these little things, but I am going to stop sharing my fancy background, and I'm going to share one of my screens. So hang on one second. All right, so you guys should be seeing my PowerPoint. All right, I want to see if I can show you some things. So are you able to see the black toolbar at the top of my screen? Because I'm sharing my whole screen. You guys able to see this up here with the mute, stop video? No? Okay. Wasn't sure if you'd be able to. Okay. So I'm going to bring this over. Can you see that? This is my Zoom app from my computer. It's not showing it. All right, sometimes it gets hung up, so we'll stop sharing it and we'll share it again. Is it showing it now? No, interesting. Okay. All right, well, let me think. How can I show you this? Let's talk about annotation. This is something that you can use to let the students to draw on your screen. So if you were showing them a diagram, or maybe it's of anatomy or a map of the United States, you could use the annotate tool to let them draw on the screen, or if you wanted to point something out, you could do that as well. So if I think it's important to, let's see, if I want to go over this and I want to say, okay, we're going to talk about the annotation tool. Can you guys see that I've circled the word annotation? So now look at the top of your screen. Do you see anything that says view options? If you look at on the screen that I'm sharing, in the top of your Zoom window, you see anything that says more or more options or view options? It should have like 3 dots. So Jane found it. So if you click on that, you should also see something that says annotate, and you should be able to annotate on my screen. If you want to try it out, go ahead. You can sign your name. This is something we think is great for even just taking roll or introducing yourself. You can have them say, you know, hey, my name is Laura, and you can have them to write on the screen. So that's a fun, interactive way to get them participating in the Zoom call, not just sitting back and watching it. So we think that's a great tool. Yeah, there's Caroline. The nice thing about it too is it'll tell you who is writing the words. So I could see that Caroline, I see Cameron's got an arrow. So you're not totally in the dark in case somebody writes something inappropriate. I was teaching a faculty class of 40 and somebody wrote help me on my screen when I was in the middle. And I saw their name and I was like, do you really need help, or are you just bored? You know, so it was kind of a fun thing to do. Now, the other thing that we can talk about is the screen sharing. Like I said, for some reason, I think maybe because I'm a co-host instead of a host, I can't show you the toolbar for share screen, but when you do want to do the sharing the screen, you can share your whole screen, or you can choose individual internet browsers that you want to share. That's important because sometimes people have like family photos on their desktop. They don't want people to maybe see what their icons are, because you might have like your bank link or something on there, and you don't want to accidentally show everything, but you don't want to have to close everything on your computer. So you can actually choose just to share the PowerPoint, just to share the internet browser. So you do have that option, which is a nice feature. Just don't forget, if you choose to share, let's say, a YouTube video, there are also options to click for share the audio. Otherwise, you'll just be showing the video and they won't be able to hear it because it'd have to come from the screen or from the speaker into your microphone. So if you ever want to show a video or share a YouTube video or something, just make sure that you also are optimizing for screen sharing, or also, you know, share computer audio. So that helps. Transcription for notes. This is really helpful if you have a professional account, or for example, what Sandy's using with her recording. Are you using cloud recording, Sandy? Okay. So if you have it turned on in your recording settings, it will automatically create a transcript for you. And so then you could email the transcripts out to the students so they could have notes of everything that was said. This is helpful, especially with people with, you know, maybe they're not great at remembering, or they just want to really remember what was said. They can get a transcript for the video. And she's using the recordings tonight. That's also really great. So I'll see if I can show this to you without being able to show this. Nonverbal feedback. As she was saying, it's important to make the eye contact, but there's also, if you're using the Zoom app, you can also give meeting reactions. So if you want to give it a try right now, if you look along the bottom of your toolbar, there should be like a little emoji head with a plus sign, and there should be a way for you to give a meeting reaction. Anybody want to try it out? There you go, Caroline's got it. She's having a party at her house. You guys see that? This is something that is a little easier to find when you're using an app than if you're just using a browser or a click to join. There's a little bit more features there. Caroline, would you mind to show the other ones so that they can see what the choices are? There should be this is supposed to be like hand clap, but it can also be like, hey, I have a question. Yeah, good, Cameron found it. That's pretty funny. Sandy's got her heart. This is, yeah, oh my goodness. I love it when I'm teaching and I get that face. When I'm teaching online and the students are like, okay, so I said something that bothered you, you know, so it gives you a little bit of a sense of they're with me, they're not with me. You can use it for kind of even a roll call, like, hey, give me the heart emoji if you're listening. And then you can kind of see, well, who may have walked away or who's kind of zoning out. It's also a good way to do like informal polling. So you can say, you know, if you want to hear this again, or if you want me to talk more about this subject, give me a heart. You know, if you want to hear, if you're tired of hearing about this subject, give me a sad face. It's a good way to get a little bit of an indicator there. Virtual backgrounds. Let me see here. I'm going to try to bring one up. I'm going to stop sharing this. Oh, does anybody have any questions about these kinds of things before I try to go to the backgrounds? Okay. So like I said, if you're in a distracting environment, you can use, there's usually 3 preset virtual backgrounds. So those are kind of nice to be able to use. And I have that, just kind of wanted to demonstrate that for you. Some people even just use them for their own, for privacy. They don't want people to see what their house looks like. You can even encourage students or your people that you're, you know, working with, encourage them to use it because maybe that makes them feel better. We had some teachers, they were trying to require students to share their video, and then they were getting some calls like, you know, my house is not very clean, I don't really want to share my video. So you can suggest to them, hey, well, why don't you just use one of the backgrounds and you can still participate and I can still see your beautiful face, you know, in case maybe they feel kind of embarrassed about that. So let me see, I'm going to show you, let me share this screen again. Now, all Zoom accounts, are you able to see what looks like a Zoom website? Okay, so most all Zoom accounts have like their brains are all kept up in the cloud, is what I say. You can control everything on a Zoom, on a pro account, even on a free account from their website, and it actually gives you more control, more power over things that you can do. So you can schedule meetings from the website, and this is where you could also schedule, if you wanted to put a poll, but I'm going to show you this. So under recordings, if you're doing something with a cloud recording, if you've recorded it, this is where it will be. It will be stored up in the browser. And it is kind of nice because let's say that you've made a recording and you want to share it with someone. You just click on share and you can kind of change the settings. So you can kind of go through here. I have the transcripts turned on. So I'm like, yeah, let people see the transcripts. You could do a passcode if you want to. All you have to do is click copy the sharing information, and then you can just paste that, email it out to whoever you want to share the video with. So that's kind of nice. But if you go to the settings area for your Zoom account, there's dozens of settings that you would want to kind of get familiar with and to look at. But people have used Zoom for years and not even known there was a website like this to go and check. So definitely check your settings on Zoom. And if you do want to do the recordings, go to the recording part. And when you come down here to the advanced features, advanced cloud recordings, this is where you can add the audio transcript. So that's just included with all of if you have any cloud storage and cloud recording, you're able to get that audio transcript for free. So it's kind of a nice thing. Also, this is where you can control a little bit more about what goes on in your recording. So you can decide if you want to only record the speaker, the gallery of all the people, the screen sharing, just in case if you're worried about, you want to record a session, but you don't want to record a child without their permission, you could only record the shared screen. So it wouldn't have their information in the recording. But that's a recording setting. Those are some definitely that you want to look at. Meeting settings, if you're interested in turning off that chat, like I said, you have to do it from the website, from the zoom.us. You just log in and then you can come down to the settings and change them. So you just kind of scroll down. There's all kinds of settings about videos. This is where you can turn off the chat if you want to. Now, depending on the kind of account that you're using, sometimes people can do a private chat, and that is where the participants can chat with each other and you'll have no idea. For chat state, we turn that off. We don't want the students chatting with each other during our class. That's the same as talking in class. We don't want that. So we disabled that feature. And then, so you might want to look into that for that. I also have it set for everyone in chat state to auto save the chats because sometimes they do get a little inappropriate and we just need a record of what's going on. So, hey, you're going to get to talk to somebody in student affairs about, why you can't behave yourself type thing. So that's just a good thing to have for your account or for the host account. This is also where you have that ability for the polling and being a co-host. I recommend that you turn this on to have it set to where you can always show your meeting toolbar so that it doesn't float around on your computer screen and get lost. That's helpful. And then go ahead and show your Zoom windows during your screen share because that also helps. So that you know what you're doing, so that you can see what's going on. This is where you can turn on the annotation and use a whiteboard. You can allow that remote control. that nonverbal feedback and meeting reactions, you can turn those features on from the website. So there's a lot of really neat settings if you have a Zoom account. Even if it's a free one, you have all these settings available to you. Some people just didn't realize it. Do we have any questions about settings?
I have one, Laura.
Sure.
Actually, it's to Sandy. Presumably, when we're a guest speaker, you're the one that controls all this stuff, right? I mean.
Yes, sir. Yes, we will have all of this set on our side. In addition, the chats won't be disabled, but they'll be set to a setting where they can't talk to each other. I'll do that at the beginning. And then if they have any questions through the chat for the teacher, I will relate that for you so you don't have to try to juggle the chat and teaching.
Gotcha. Yeah, I saw your chat come up and say that was what you're doing. I just want to make sure that you're not expecting me as a guest speaker to go on the website and change your settings. No, right?
No, but it's good if you have a Zoom, or if for some reason with like Deacon's Table, you stop using WebEx. So
yeah. I got you. All right. Thank you, dear. I remain in my ignorance.
Yeah, I love to show this to people just because so many people aren't aware that it's even an option, you know, to be able to change things about their account. Even if they have a free account, you can come in and change certain things. So sorry, Tom, didn't mean to make you nervous. I just, you know what, now you'll know if somebody says they're having trouble, you can say, well, have you checked your settings on the website? You know.
I got you, Laura. I actually, as Sandy said, I use WebEx to conduct my adult Sunday school class, and it's a pretty much different than what I'm looking at here at Zoom.
Yeah. There's a guy in my office that teaches the WebEx. Like, we all kind of have our own platforms, and he and I have weekly, you know, well, my virtual platform can do this, and he'll say, well, WebEx can do this, you know, so we'll go back and forth. So it's been pretty funny.
Well, for me, it's a matter of money, because I use one of my adult Sunday school class members' WebEx account. He has a professional account, so I don't pay a dime, and so I'm totally dependent on him. But I understand. Yeah. Thanks.
Absolutely. So, not to keep you guys too much longer, sometimes Zoom help is something you need one-on-one, you know, but I just kind of felt like these were good things to definitely share to make sure everybody knew. I'm also here for questions. Do you guys have any questions?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So I'm going through, I was looking at the backgrounds that you had just a minute ago, because I've got my kids all running behind me. But the only options that I have are backgrounds somehow are just family pictures.
Okay, so you just probably need to, you can probably just download some. So if you want to just go on Google and do like sunset, or, you know, you can even just Google Zoom backgrounds and then just save it as a file on your computer. Then when you open your Zoom app, there should be a little plus box. So if you're looking at it even right now, out beside the pictures, there should be a little plus box. If you click on that, it should let you link to any file on your computer.
Okay.
So if you have any specific backgrounds, you could just do that. Also, thank you for reminding me, Caroline, sometimes you have different backgrounds depending on which version of Zoom that you're using. So I don't think I wanted to be able to show it to you guys, but I wasn't able to. So if you look at your Zoom app, and there should be like a little flower or like a little gearbox in the kind of the top right corner. If above that, there's usually, maybe it has your initials. It's right next to the search bar. It could be like it may be a picture. If you click on that, you'll get a menu that'll tell you, you know, your email address that you're logged in with and some settings. But if you kind of look down, there's also something called check for updates. And if you haven't done that in a while, the chances are you're using an older version of Zoom. They update like every 6 weeks. So sometimes you get an option for a new cool background if you update the app. So you could try that out. But yeah, probably you could get some pictures of a skyline or the beach or whatever and just connect it. It's a great question. Thank you.
It also sounds like your default folder might be set to your personal folder, because there should be 2 or 3 that are default. Like the one I have up right now, it's at the beach. I didn't download that one. It should be part of the Zoom. So a lot of times it's just the default folder.
Yes. Great, Joe. Great suggestion. Yeah, you look good with the beach behind you. This is good. I feel relaxed just staring at it. Any other questions? Because if not, I'm going to go get some dinner because, Hamilton County found out that they're homeschooling, and my children have been home with me since December 1st. So, because my son got quarantined because his lab mate got it COVID, and I'm like, sure, great. We're just not going to go to school at all in December. It's fine. So anyways, but any other questions, I'm happy to answer. Okay. Sandy, do you need anything else from me?
I think that I'm good. Thank you so much for that. A lot of those tips and tricks were very helpful.
Awesome. All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening, and I will catch up with you later. Bye-bye.
You too. Thanks again. Bye, Laura.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, guys.
So then on the other side of it, with the engaging kids, the question or the things that I talked about with communication and how it matters, did anybody have any questions about that? Or was there anything that you wanted to bring to the table personally? Maybe something I didn't cover, maybe something you thought of while I was talking. If not, it's okay. I just wanted to throw it out there before I let everyone disperse.
I missed that whole segment. Can you start over?
Yes, I will. And I'm pretty sure that everyone will go great and leave because they've already seen it.
Sandy, I did have a couple of questions, but I think they're probably more specific to our setup. So there's no need to tie everybody down for that. We could, Joe and you and me and the guys could handle that offline.
Okay. And either way, if you think they might benefit from it too, whichever way you think.
I think maybe. So the one thing would be the uniqueness of what we're going to be doing as far as there's 3 of us. Right. If it's just personal preference, would you rather have us all in one place or all of us tying in from our different homes or whatever? Does that matter?
It doesn't. Kind of like Tom was talking earlier about having the recruiter come too. I'm assuming, Tom, that you meant that he would be at his own location tying in, correct?
Yes, he would be at his own location.
Yeah, and so that works too. I think that I can have several co-hosts because Joe just popped in as a co-host and Laura was a co-host. So I think if more than one of you need to be able to share a screen or something, I think that would be fine.
We can't, and if we need to, we can also, we're looking at possibly going into a webinar version of Zoom. So the webinar version is where people log in, they're not on camera, but they have a question and answer or raise their hand scenario. So the larger the classes get, and if there's pieces that are different, we can start going to that type of environment as well. So eventually we might go to that, then it gets more into like a host / responders and stuff. You can get into that nitty-gritty there. And then there's Zoom. Did you go over breakout rooms or anything?
Laura did.
Those are kind of fun.
Yeah, breakout rooms and the polls and the different things like that, all the little tips and tricks and fun things. And then I just talked about our classes and ways you should and shouldn't communicate and whatnot. But I definitely don't want to keep you guys any longer if there aren't any other questions. But of course, please feel free, as always, to reach out to me in any way that you have been. And I am always available for any questions and any help because I greatly appreciate your help because I couldn't be doing this without you. So it means a great deal to me and everyone else that is working with Rise Up to have the amount not just the amount of volunteers that have stepped up, it's been very humbling, but also the quality of volunteers, because everyone that has stepped up to help are amazing, and we've just been very blessed. So thank you guys so much. So
thank you for putting this together. It was real helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming. I greatly appreciate it. And again, I'm still recording. So I recorded it. So if you do want it, if there was something there like, oh, what did she say again? I'm happy to send it over to you. So just let me know and I'll get that recording to you.